Okay, my friends, get ready, because I am going to set this straight. This is not right. This is defamatory to Mitchel Hedges, and the skull is real, and I will show you it's real, and I will show you why they thought it wasn't real, and they need to do some research and understand the anatomy. Because there are marks that look like tool marks. Yes, they are not tool marks. They are aponeurosis tendon. All right, let's just start here. They're saying the Mitchel Hedges skull, quartz skull, is modern, like every rock crystal skull as have been examined so far. They don't know how to examine them. That's why they think it's modern. Okay, I'm not disparaging Josh Gates by any mean whatsoever. He is asking to get the test of this crystal skull of doom that inspired Indiana Jones. And Bill Holman has possession of this, and I'm trying to get a hold of him because it's real. Now, their end result from these labs and so forth, oh, no, it's not real because it's buffed. Well, it's not buffed. It's because it is tendon. That's not buffed. They see these stripes coming down here and they say, oh, that's somebody buffed it. No, that's because this is what happens when the silicon infused into here after everything was boiled out. I'm going to go through this, but this is very upsetting to me because the same thing happened to me that happened to this crystal skull. This is absolutely 100% real. There's no question. You can't get in there and put these fibers inside, and these are the fibers that are the collagen fibers. I now understand this process totally, of how these invasive particles come in and why they invade and how come they invade. It was because of a boiling hot, salty silicate flood. And it was boiling the oceans for over a year. That's what the Smithsonian says. And I have to agree with that. And this guy says, no, this is a fake skull. It's not real. Well, this is Yale, after I told him about this. Exceptional preservation, soft-bodied creatures, silica-rich oceans. Yes, exceptional preservation. And that was in 2016. I presented all my stuff to them in 2015. And there's somewhere around here they talk about, excuse me, hold on. Now, she lived her whole life being called a huckster and a liar and all this. Crystal skull. Listen to this. Holy relic or hoax? Now, this is Josh Gates. I'm not going to play it because they don't, let's just have sound and so forth. But he's going to be looking into this Mitchel Hedges skull. I will show you exactly what it is. I want to see what his determination is. Okay, so this is Bill Holm. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. And he possesses this skull. And I believe they think it was a crafted skull, and I think he may still believe that. I don't know. I tried to get through to him, haven't been successful. But it has allowed it to be scrutinized, and they're in some kind of museum right now. So I'm going to watch this, but they're just getting ready to show it. And he says, "Are you ready for this?" And this is when he was young, and they found it. And it's under that sheet right there. Josh is getting all excited, and they want to take a look at it now. He said, "Wow, look at that! Holy smokes!" Well, let's look at it from a really serious perspective. That is absolutely no question. It is 100%, basically 100% quartz. I haven't actually touched it and seen it, but I don't see any inclusions in there. The teeth, everything, the whole 9 yards has been transitioned as far as I can see. But transitioning to quartz did happen, and that's what happened here. Okay, they take it into the lab, and they're going to take a look at it. Okay, Bill Holman asked, is it made from a single piece of crystal? And he says, yes. This is Dr. Aaron Celestian. He's a mineralogist, and he's going to explain the details about this skull. He's got it under a microscope now. All right, they just don't have a clue that it's real. They're talking about if it was made, they would have had to use stone tools, and how did they do it, and all this and that. Now, let's see what they say. I already know what they're going to say because I've studied this before. They're going to say they use modern tools like dentistry tools. Basically, I think that's what they'll say. But this, I think, is kind of a new take on it. Let's see if they've changed. Now, you see this? You can take the mandible right off. It fits right in there. And that's exactly the way our bodies and our bones are constructed. And the tendons hold them together. Now, they put it under microscopes. They're looking at it and so forth. Okay. They're looking at all these Ponerosa's lines. And he's saying that it had to be done by a wheel. You wouldn't even be able to do it. They're still thinking it's made by humans. He says it has to be in the 20th century by a grinding wheel type of thing, buffing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to make these striations. So he says absolutely, there's no question, this was not ancient. All right, Josh, I would like to speak to you, my friend. I enjoy watching you uncover things, but this, my friend, you are missing. That was alive at one time. There's just no question about it. The experts you're going to talk to don't have the expertise to understand. They're not broad spectrum scientists. They're pinpoint scientists. You need somebody like me that understands the whole 9 yards. And this was the silicates. It turned into silicon. And I have an idea of exactly how that happened. You're gonna have to talk to me, Josh. This is not right. This is just not right. It seems like you're continuing to push this fakeness about the Mitchel Hedges skull. I need to get into this conversation. I have the details, although I've never touched the skull. All right, here's how it ends up. Josh is saying, don't you understand? You have to listen to, we're looking at it and we understand it. And this is an expert and he's saying it's fake or it's not modern. And he's saying, well, I didn't say they didn't do fancy work on it. He's saying they had to have a civilization here that was capable of doing this thousands of years ago. I say, no, that skull is the result of the Great Flood. And I almost have it figured out exactly. It must have been, well, I'm going to go over how it entombed itself and ended up becoming so perfectly clear. But there is no doubt it was alive at one time. Okay, my friends, this is a tragedy. This woman found this skull. And she said, here it is. And they said, no, this is a fake. And they made her out to be a liar her entire life. She's dead now. Anna Mitchel Hedges. This skull is 100%, I will certify this as being real. And why? Because this right here is the coating of the fibers and the membranes and so forth that are inside your brain, which are identical to these that solidified in this process of transition. This is nucleophilic invasion and substitution by silicon dioxide. There was a great, great, great flood. And there was huge amounts of siliceous ooze went here and there. This is the product of being virtually encapsulated in a bucket full of silicon dioxide. And after it boiled, because the earth boiled for over a year, and that's from the Smithsonian, it said over a year the oceans boiled. And what happens is all the stuff boils out of it, and then it fills in with whatever is available. And at that point, all that was available was silicon dioxide. Now, look at what you're looking at. First of all, you see that transition? That's inside. That's not on the outside. And that happens to be this. And the reason it's forward, and this is blank here, is because it was resting on his face. This would have been that way. His lip is wrinkled back, and his nose is wrinkled back. People don't pay any attention to the details. Why would they carve the lip wrinkled back and the nose wrinkled back? They wouldn't do that. There's no way for them to get inside and carve all of these nerves. It's impossible. Impossible. Now, the other reason is they saw all these buff marks. Well, they made all these nice little buff marks. Those, my friends, are biological. You see this? If you watch the examination, what they did was they looked and they found all of these straight little buffy lines straight across the skull. And they said, oh, they must have had something buffing, and they couldn't have done it this way. So it must be 20th century. It must be just recently where they had enough power, like a drill, like a dentist drill, basically, is what they were talking about, to cut across there to smooth it out. Well, that's not true. This is what the head looks like if they knew what they were talking about. These are the lines that they were talking about in the skull. All right, that's a human head. Now, you got a lot of stuff going on here. But these are a ponerosis tendon. You still have also bundles of muscle that have that same strappiness to them. So, very obvious that if it's, what happened was you lost everything out to here. All of this crystallized. Lips and everything. This lip was bent back, the nose was bent back. It was laying face down. The brain is back in here, drifted down. All the fibers that are run to your brain cells are still there. And they have there's something different about collagens and keratins. They don't change in the boiling process the way flesh does, and all the rest of the organ gooey stuff washes out, it boils out. And then you have the framework. That's what we see in your crystal skull. The framework stayed filled in with silicon dioxide. Now, this is an absolute tragedy that they disparaged this woman her entire life, called her a fraud, a fake, a liar, all these things. This is what I just showed you. This on his face. This is how the thing died. The brain drifted down. This one, the brain is still up. This, I think it's a cerebrum. Drifted down. Otherwise, it would have been a ball in the back. But it drifted down because it was face down. All this is exactly identical. And you can't get it inside. It's impossible. And I showed you the ponerosis tendon. It's going to be all over here. And it's very, very fine. So you don't see it just looking at it, but under the microscope, you see it. And under the microscope, the guy said, no question, it had to be done by a polishing wheel. He's got to start to understand biology. If you don't, I'm sorry, we're just being told things that just aren't true. And Josh has to stand up and talk to me about this. This is his obligation as a scientist, explorer, to stand up to what I'm saying. Things are not what we were told. So I should have a say in this. And this is why I was upset about this today, because of what happened to me. And both of these people are dead now. They discovered this head in Kentucky in about 2010 or so. And this was on TV and just dismissed as being somebody carved it. Well, the nose is broken off here. And then this, they said, was just iron oxides. Well, iron oxides is in blood. Red and black is the blood. Red is the artery, black is the vein. It has a cap on here. I'm going to go through this again because it was very, very upsetting. That I tried to get in touch with them and they're both dead. Arlie Caudle was the one that discovered it with Jim Burchell. They were on TV on a History Channel, and in less than 1 minute, under 1 minute, less than 1 minute, it was looked at and dismissed as being just a carved fake. And that was Scott something. I forget, but I went round and round with him, and he's finally just said, hey, I'm the expert and you're nothing, basically, and you get lost. All of this is denial of truth and reality. They won't stand up for themselves when you put them face to face. Now, Josh, I expect he might. You know, he makes every indication that he's looking for truth. And if he's looking for truth, here it is right here. This is exactly what's inside the crystal skull. And I can say, like I said, I think I know exactly what happened. This ended up being virtually inside of a basin of silicon. It must have. It's very heavy. Silicon dioxide is heavier than water, 2.5 times heavier. It must have been encapsulated in some kind of tube or something, or like a well or something. And it was really heavily invaded with siliceous ooze. It would fall to the bottom. This guy's on the bottom with his face sticking down, and it turned into silicon. Because it would have been boiled. All the flesh boils out. The flesh is mud. Flesh is mud. It's eroded from the bodies of creatures during the Great Flood, and that created the red bed, which is worldwide, mud, which is boiled flesh, and then above that there's a layer of plant material, which is the gray clays, and then above that is a black cap where all the fallout from the explosion happened and landed on the earth. This was all because we were hit by Venus. And the siliceous ooze came up everywhere, and it's very invasive, and it takes over, and it's heavy. And that's what this, I think I got this figured out, exactly how it happened, and it is real, and so is Jim and Arlie's head. I finally wrote this book, Mudfossils and Velikovsky and Minds in Collision. I was going over the whole thing today. I'm gonna go right from the beginning, how I got started with this, and who I worked with, and it's still pushed back against, and it's 100% known reality. And we put our faith in the people that claim to be the ones looking for truth. They're not looking for truth. They're looking for stability so that they don't look foolish. I'm going to tell you right now, this absolutely 100% is what they were looking at in that video Josh Gates was in. He's got to stand up and talk to me. Josh, I can be very, very reasonable, my friend, and I think you can be too. And I've seen you scrutinize and look and ask questions that people sometimes are afraid to ask. Well, this is the kind of answer that people are afraid to look at. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about these buffed lines. All right. So far, Velikovsky's been destroyed. He had every bit of evidence to support everything he said. And everything he said that were predictions have come true. Since we had the space, he did this book in 1950, and it was bestseller #1 on the bestseller list for 11 weeks in a row. 11 weeks in a row, #1, New York Times bestseller, and academia forced the publisher to take it off the bookshelves, or they would never buy any books from him again, which was Macmillan, and they did. And then another, I think it was Doubleday or somebody took over, but it wasn't. It was already destroyed by that time, and he was now being called a fake and a fraud and a liar and all of those things. And he did the actual research, and all of the things he said basically came true as far as I'm concerned. He's my hero. So I wrote a book called Mudfossils and Velikovsky and Minds in Collision, because they cannot accept the physical evidence, absolute physical evidence. In a number of areas I have presented physical undeniable, unimpeachable evidence. And it has just been discussed. We don't want to talk about it. I mean, to not understand this, and to not understand it's stunning incompetence in academia. And it is. That's all it is. Now, I'm going to go through my experiences, specifically starting with fascia and my papers on fascia-facilitated fossilization and how I interacted with Yale and their non-interaction. And I think that was in my opinion, that's their job, is to look into this stuff where I have DNA and CAT scans and specimens and everything. This turned into an absolute nightmare. This head. Because I said, there's no way they can deny this. They did. And that's CAT scan, the whole 9 yards. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you present. But you're done. And that's what happened with all my stuff. And that's what happened with Velikovsky. And I am here to talk about it, because the same thing with the crystal skull. You can't deny this. This is undeniable. Nobody could put those fibers inside this guy's head. And that's where his ear is, I think, by the way. And these are the same identical fibers. The cerebrum, I think it's cerebrum, cerebellum, is pushed this way. Normally it would float out around the back. But because he was laying on his face when he got boiled, and that's what happened, the oceans boiled. And then what was left over were the structural things. And this had to be in a pool of silicon, siliceous ooze, because it's heavier, 2.5 times as heavy as water. It would have settled into this little pool with this guy's face facing down, like in a tube or something, I don't know. But the siliceous ooze would have dropped to the bottom and filled everything in. Once it starts, quartz has an affinity to just continue growing and moving into everything. It will accept it. Now, you see these filaments? There's something different about membranes and fascia. That's why my paper was called Fascia-Facilitated Fossilization. This would be considered fascia. And even the coating of your body, skin, it's all of that is membranes. And there's all of these fibers in the brain are coated with little fibers, it looks like to me. And there's no way they could have put them in there. And this is really what a brain is. That's a scan. All right, I've looked deeply into his assertions, and I agree basically with everything he said, because I can see the evidence. And they're talking 3,500 years old. Well, that's when it appears that a lot of these civilizations were basically wiped out. And that's apparently where the 3 layers of rock occur around the world, everywhere in the world. There's a red bed, a gray clay, and a black cap. And as if you've been with me at all, you understand the red bed is from the boiled out flesh everywhere in the earth, from boiling of the oceans. Then the gray clay is from the, plant material layer. And then above that is the black cap from the fallout from all the volcanism and all that stuff. All right, it might be best just to leave it at this for now, but Josh Gates owes me a discussion about this crystal skull. Now, and all about Velikovsky being destroyed his whole life. That's why I wrote the book about him. And Josh, you're doing a good job, my friend. I like the fact that you're looking into things, but I need to be able to be part of this discussion. And this is the Discovery UK. Josh Gates tests the crystal skull of doom. Well, as I showed you, or will show you, that test does not hold up. That thing is real. And you have to know the chemistry, which is about the siliceous ooze and the silicon dioxide being much heavier than water. And then you have to know about the anatomy, all the different little bits and pieces of that. And then you have to study Velikovsky, who had all the stories from everywhere in the world. They were the same time frame and catastrophe. So Josh, please, my friends, get a hold of me. All right, we need to talk. I have things that you should be examining. If you're willing to look at the crystal skull, you should be able to be willing to look at the things that I have been presenting. Like this, as a bone, like that, as a hair follicle, a 2-inch wide hair follicle. This should excite you, my friend. All right, there's when a muscle attaches, sebaceous gland, hair shaft, a root ball. It's all here, 2 inches wide, completely transitioned. All right, thank you, my friends. I love you all.